Hello students, welcome to class 12 English classes conducted by your English teacher Monika Kaur. Today we are going to start with Flamingos chapter number 3, Deep Water. But before students we start, please I would like to request you to share, like and subscribe my channel. William Douglas was Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States. He was born in October 16, 1898 in U.S. He died on 19 January 1980 in U.S. In this slide, synopsis of the chapter, the number 1 is theme. And here it is. It's psychologically. One is courageous, hard worker, with sheer determination, willpower, perseverance, a strong desire, it will help to win all sort of fears or phobias. The chapter gives message. The worth of human determination in the wake of difficulties. It is not death, but the fear of death that creates terror in our minds. Moral of the chapter: we should not fear from anything and not to lose courage. We must have willpower and determination to face and fight against all sort of that difficult fears or situations. When the author was 10 or 11 years old, he decided to learn to swim in a pool at the Young Men Christian Association, that is YMCA in Yakima. The Yakima River was very, very dangerous. The author's mother continuously warned him against the river, but YMCA pool was safe. It was only 2 or 3 feet deep at the shallow end and 9 feet deep at the other. The drop was gradual. He got a pair of water wings and went to the pool. The author's aversion towards water started when he was nearby 3 or 4 years. Aversion means dislike, frightened or phobia for anything else. But this phobia started when he went with his father to have a picnic in the beach of California. They together were really enjoying the scene of that beach by standing on the bank of it. Suddenly, obviously, the waves were coming there. As a child, he was really afraid of that waves coming and going because that was touching his feet as well as his body. He was somewhere else trying to hang on his father's body. Suddenly, one of the very strong waves came and took him along with it. It was a nearly drowned situation for him. He was buried under the water. His breath was gone. He was frightened, but his father was laughing, standing there on the bank only. He did not even move an inch to save him, as there was no terror on his face, as he knew it that it was not at all a death-taking type of the incident. When he decided to join YMCA pool for learning swimming, at that time when he went there, whole of his unpleasant memories and his childish fear were revived again. But soon he gathered again his confidence and tried new or a very that beginning techniques inside the water. Now he was feeling somehow comfortable inside the water. But it was not the end of his fear. Suddenly, some misadventure happened. Although Arthur was not at all enthusiastic to go to pool all alone, but yet, by gathering his confidence, he went to the pool. No one was there at that time. The water was still. No movement was there inside the water. The tiled bottom was neat and clean, and it was so white that it was transparent to see everything inside that pool. He was really feeling very lonely in that place. So he was waiting for someone to come, and for that waiting he sat on the corner of the pool side. Suddenly, the misadventure, the nightmare started. An 18-year-old boy with a handsome body, a muscular body, came there. He called him in a very, very funny way and just pushed him inside the water. Arthur suddenly was now inside the water. He was not mentally prepared at all. He landed in a sitting position. Almost whole of the water was now in his mouth. Suddenly, he went at once to the bottom. He was very much fearful. It was a scary position for him. Suddenly, on the way down, he planned that when his feet hit the bottom, he would make a big jump to get onto the surface of the water. So he started paddling his legs so that to get onto the edge of the pool. Arthur made a proper foolproof strategy or a plan in his mind to get out from that a very, very deadly situation. But before he touched the bottom, his lungs were ready to burst out because of the over excess of the water that he had swallowed. His feet touched the bottom and he made a great move upwards after getting back all his strength. He imagined that he would be going up to the surface like a bottle in a cork, moved out as it is when opened. But his survive and the efforts to survive became slowly. He opened his eyes and saw nothing but water with a dirty yellow color. He grew so much panic in himself only. Because of water, excessive water in his lungs, now his breathing was going out of his control. He was feeling suffocating. He tried to shout for help, but no one was there. He actually was making out to get out from that water. He was jumping from that bottom, but he had swallowed a lot of water and he was choking a lot. His legs hung like a dead weight on his body. His legs were not at all working with his mind or with his soul to survive. A great force was pulling him under. Somewhere else, he thought that it was the end of him. He was shouting, but that shouting was not at all coming out of his mouth, as because he had been weakening around. He started droning. The mind which did not want to surrender before the death, now after so much of the efforts, when he thought that he was not going to survive, he surrendered in front of the death and he started droning. The author was struck inside the water. His mind was not working, but his body parts like lung was paining so much with inside the water and ready to burst. His head was like a rolling spin. He was feeling unconscious. He was making a strategy, but would not be coming out with a perfect strategy. He was waiting for him to touch the bottom, and then he would be coming to the surface of the pool like a cork in a bottle come out from it. But everything was in vain. His arms and his legs were totally been striking in water, but without any result. He went down and down and down, and it was only what he was seeing, that was a yellow and dark water. He was really in fear. He was really in terror. He was not understanding. His mind was really not thinking at all. He was not at all positive. He was droning under the water. He was paralyzed. His body was stiff, rigid with that fear of water, fear of drowning in the water. Only his beats were telling him that he was alive. Nothing more was alive in him. Suddenly, he felt tiles under his feet. He jumped with whole of the leftover energy it was with him. But that jump did not make any difference. He saw only water and water around him. He was really being surrounded with a yellow color of a lot of water. It was really a terrorized moment for him, because it's been like that he was going to die with that fear only. He was trembling. His body was shaking with that fear of dying. He tried to call for a help, but nothing was there. No one was there to help him. There was a little light of hope. He was coming out of that dreadly yellow water. Then he started again efforting to come out for the third time, but he started droning. He was going down towards to the bottom of the pool. He had sucked the air. He had almost swallowed much of the water. His all efforts had been gone into vain, into the garbage. His legs went limping. His body was totally out of his control. A totally darkness covered his brain. No thinking was there. No another thought was there. But then also there was no terror. No terror of death. No more panic of that mental state was there. It seems to be that the author was in a quiet and peaceful era. Although he was drowsing, he was sliding, he was going inside the sleep. It was looking nice. It was looking as very gently he was going somewhere else. He was going to be in the space. He was in a very, very satisfied sleep. Yes, he was in the state of unconscious mind. He was not knowing it, because he surrendered himself in front of the death, because he had nothing else to do now. His body was being paralyzed. His mind was being paralyzed. And he had only one route, and that route was to accept his death, and that death due to drowning. Oh, it was no less than a miracle that when he regained his consciousness, He was lying on his stomach beside the pool and vomiting. The boy who pushed him inside the water was just saying that he was kidding. But the author had nearly a death. His death was so near. He was about to drown, but however was fortunate, was lucky to survive. And he went home, but he was too weak. His body was still trembling, shivering, as the moment was so fresh in his mind about that water, the phobia of the water. And he cried a lot after when he went to his room and stayed there. He never went back to the pool after that. He feared water and avoided it for longer of the period of the time. After the pool incident, it was now a lot of years, but still, author was trapped in that terror. Whenever he thought of pool, the terror seized his whole of the mind, body, and paralyzed him to think anything else. It was a type of the horror that always grabbed his heart. But he came to know about a little spring was formed. He wanted to get on to have a perfect enjoyment under that spring. But again, whenever he thought of that, he felt the terror, the pool terror had seized him again. He was like a handicap who was staying out of his love for water. It was now years, and all these past years, the incident had increased the fear in his mind more and more. Whenever he followed the water, the haunting fear come back to him again. He wanted to do fishing for salmon in canoes. He wanted to do a bass fishing in New Hampshire. He wanted to have a trout fishing. He wanted to have a boating, swimming, canoeing inside the water, but of no use, because he ruined all these trips by staying away from water because of that one fear. Now he was out of control. He loved water activities. He wanted to get out of that fear, and he wanted to enjoy those water activities which he really wanted to do in his life. What he did then next? After deciding that he would not be longer handicapped and would not suppress his feeling for water activities, he decided to get back to the swimming pool to learn swimming, not alone but through the instructor. Finally, he went there with the instructor. He went inside the pool, practiced 5 days a week. The instructor put a belt around him, a rope attached to the belt, went through the pulley that ran on an overhead cable. He held on to the end of the rope, and they went back and forth across the pool day after day. Day after day, the time had started moving on. The instructor's technique had already tried in his psychological mind to shed that panic which usually froze his legs inside the water. Instructor put his face underwater and gave him the technique of exhaling inside the water, how to balance his breath inside the water, how to raise his nose and then inhale the breath, Every time, whenever he is instructed him to do it, he was repeating it, and because of that exercising it 100 times, he actually made himself so perfect in those techniques. Now, day by day, he was getting a good hand on that swimming. And after 6 months of training now everything was being done by the instructor. He knew it that when he was there in the pool, he didn't fear any type of a trap or a phobia now from the water. But now it was a time for him to challenge to himself, to trace or to that get the sign that whether still he had a phobia of water or not. So he decided to swim all alone. So author went towards to that island, lake, went towards in New Hampshire. And there in Hampshire, what he did, that he dived and then he swam to Triggs Island. He swam 2 miles across the lake, although the fear returned back to him just only for a moment. That's it. And after that, it was not at all looking back. He knew he had conquered the fear of water fully. And suddenly, it was a dream that had come true. A perfect dream of him to enjoy the water activities. Now, he had not at all even a single minute of any sort of that fear. The author's new life started with enthusiasm, where no room for a fear or of any type of the phobia from water. The whole experience had a deep meaning for the author. He had experienced both the sensation of dying and the terror that fear of it can produce. With that, the willpower to live, to grow in that is also a remarkable. And he did all that to overcome the fear of water. Truly here we can say that he had followed a very beautiful quote from Franklin Roosevelt, where he said, "All we have to fear is fear itself." And literally it would go in the case of the author, where at last he won his own fear by creating that fear itself a fear. So guys, hope you people have understood the summary. So guys, we will meet up again. By that time, you have to take good care of yourself, and please, what you have to do, yes, please like, share and subscribe my YouTube channel. Hello students, these are few of the short question answers from the chapter that we completed it. Please do it in your fair copy. Check your limit, students, while doing these questions. You have to write these questions not more than 40 to 60 words.